Hello and welcome to What Now with Anna and Eric. I am Anna. This is
not Eric. I'm Kelly.
Yes, and Kelly is co-hosting with me today because Eric is off gallivanting somewhere, probably social distancing. We will see him again next week.
I don't think he's social distancing.
Probably not.
I don't trust him.
Eric is not the best at social distancing.
No.
He's just a people person.
I get that.
Yeah. No, you're a people person.
I am.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not social distancing. I'm here with you.
Yeah. So we are so excited, man. The podcast is still continuing with everything that is going on. And honestly, if we just go right into our catch-up tip. So actually, no, I went too far. What's your 3-word summary?
Oh, a 3-word summary would be learn to trust.
Learn to trust. That's nice. Mine was Promised Land Prep.
Promised Land prep.
I felt like all of the chapters were related to prepping for the Promised Land.
It was a lot of that.
There was a lot of that going on. Yeah. So anyways, catch-up tip for this week. Listen, so many people are in quarantine. This is a great time to get into the Bible. I mean, really.
Yes.
And Kelly has something to say to that.
Well,
she also has many children. So.
That's the thing there.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of children Bible lessons going on, which, good for a lot of us adults too, because
yeah,
it's so much easier to understand.
It really is. Children's Bibles are great. Yeah. I've read my fair share.
So, yes.
So maybe that's your catch-up. Catch-up with the children.
There you go.
Yeah, makes sense. And it is easier to understand. So get ready to have some fairly normal people talking about the Bible.
Well,
you're on What Now?
Spiritual growth is a puzzle, and I'm a little bit muddled. What does discipleship even mean? What now? What
now? This is like the period of the episode where if you realize you totally forgot something or did not prepare, this is the time to prepare.
Like during the theme song?
During the theme song.
Well, I was thinking
done that before where I was like, oh no.
You're very prepared. I mean, I've read, but you have notes.
I do.
So you're
I'm a note taker.
Obviously in charge.
Mm-hmm. And then I take these afterwards and I put them all in a binder so that I can look back at all of my previous notes.
That's fabulous.
Isn't this great?
It's like a journey.
It's actually been very healthy for my Bible study habits, I guess.
Does it help? Because now you see, I've covered this and I've covered this.
Yes.
And now I can move on.
Yeah.
I can see that.
And it's good, too, because the thing with note-taking is when you write something down, you're more likely to remember it.
This is true.
And so I notice a lot more when something comes up that relates back to, Genesis or Exodus, whatever. And I'm like, oh, I remember reading that, and this is how that applies.
That's awesome. See, I bought a journaling Bible, so I color. And let's see. Well, look, there's not a lot of coloring. Where's my Deuteronomy? I colored. See, I color, and I make notes.
That's fancy.
I'll show the class.
If you're just listening to this one, just know that it's very beautiful.
You can't see. It's very pretty.
It is very pretty.
I suggest colored pencils over markers.
So do you color while reading?
I color while reading, so I know that I've
a very talented
finished that section.
Multitasking ability.
Yeah. Well, I'm good at that.
Very impressed over here. Okay, so we're going to start out our Bible recap. We just started Deuteronomy, which was written by, do you know?
Moses.
Written by Moses, along with the first 5 books of the Bible, all written by Moses, which kind of goes between Genesis and when Moses dies, basically. Kind of cuts off there because obviously he's not alive anymore. So we are reading in this one. We've read Deuteronomy chapter 1 through Deuteronomy 25. So we are going to start out with our Bible recap. You ready for this?
I am so ready for this.
Okay, starting with Deuteronomy chapter 1. And by the way, there are a lot of recaps in this one. I'm pausing for a second because Deuteronomy literally means second law. This was just Moses repeating everything he had previously said. So
I did not realize that that's what it meant, but there was a lot of repeating.
Yes, there's a lot of repeating that happens in this.
Even like within a verse, I'm like, but we just said that like 3 lines ago.
Yes, there
we're
were
saying it
literal
again.
chunks of paragraphs that were like 2 chapters later.
Just repeated.
Over and over. Yeah. So there was a lot of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Deuteronomy chapter 1. Almost there, recap. Kill and not kill recap. No entering recap. Please obey. 10 commandments recap. Please be faithful. Please don't fall for it. Please don't forget. Please don't forget you are horrible. God loves you. No, really. Please obey. Worship changes. Idols are a bad idea. Tithe parties. Freedom. Festival recap. The one-day government. No to sorcery. Yes to prophets. Justice recap. War rules. And then this is when it gets really intense. Specific cases recap. Super specific cases. Super specific cases continued. Super specific cases continued again. Super specific cases unending. And that is how we finished out Deuteronomy 26.
I mean, the thing that really stood out to me in those super specific cases was something about being hit with a sandal.
Yes. That was the thing. Yeah. Guy got spit at, and apparently that was really bad for your reputation.
To be spit at and
have your sandal stolen. Yes.
You're right. It wasn't hit with a sandal. It was
I did think that was funny because when I was reading that section, I was expecting something like more intense punishment-wise, you know?
Right.
But it was just like, and he will forever be known as the man or the family whose guy had his sandal
no
stolen.
sandal.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just, clearly there was a cultural something there. So, yeah.
Okay.
What were your initial thoughts on this?
On all of it?
Yeah.
Well, at the beginning of Deuteronomy, I'm like, okay, I get this. Like, people didn't trust, and they just created so much havoc for each other.
Yeah.
And then as we got going, I'm like, how does any of this apply to me at all anymore?
Yeah, there were a lot of different things in here. And you know, again, what really gets me through these repeat chapters is looking for the details that don't show up in like the original version, because they're usually there for some specific reason. And there were a lot of little details that stood out to me. Not so much in the super specific cases chapters. That one was just a lot, and I didn't know what to think.
See, what's going through my mind as you say that is like, I'm lucky if I remember what I read in the paragraph before, and you remember that it's a new detail that wasn't told to us before.
Tell you what, note taking.
It's impressive.
Changes your life.
I need to take more notes.
Yeah, well. So there were some really good ones in here. There was something that was interesting is I did notice God mandated a lot of things that we do today, like the justice system, very similar to now. He had some DNR regulations, which I thought was pretty funny. There was a verse in there about not taking out the people right away because then there would be too many animals.
Right.
And
I did read that.
Yeah.
That.
So I'm like, that's a DNR thing.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very good point.
Yeah. There were also some like hiking practices that we have now for hiking that were in there.
I feel like I missed that. Tell me what you picked up there.
It was about going outside of camp with your shovel and burying.
That hiking detail.
Yes.
Yes.
I
A
noticed.
spade must be part.
Yes,
of
exactly.
Your toolkit.
Exactly.
Is the word, I believe. That was used.
Okay. So there were a lot of like little things that I did notice. I'm like, oh yeah, we totally do this.
Yeah.
Like God said it first. He does. He does
Yeah.
it a lot.
I mean, I don't muzzle my oxen at all. So
Practical tip.
right.
Don't be doing that. Don't muzzle your oxen.
Do not muzzle your oxen.
Yeah. There were a lot of also, and I did notice this too, there was a lot of foreshadowing to the future. So like if this is your first time reading through the Bible, you probably wouldn't notice. But there was so much in it, like every single chapter where it was some reference to something that was going to happen in the future. Like there was a lot of talking about like, you know, a king shouldn't have a bunch of wives. That was in there. Mm-hmm. Or he shouldn't hold a bunch of gold because that would draw him astray, or you shouldn't marry like a foreign wife because that would draw you astray, which were all things that happened with Solomon however many generations in the future. Like
very intuitive of you to see that.
Connected in my brain. So there were a lot of those instances. And there's also this moment where Moses talks about it must have been prophetic, because he literally went through Israel rebels. They get captured. They go to a foreign land. God is silent for a long time before Jesus gets there. And Moses literally talks about that whole segment that is happening.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote these books. He did not live through that experience, but he basically prophesied thousands of years of history right after his death. That was all happening. So
Mind blown, really.
Yeah.
I mean, what else do you say about this?
it's crazy.
It's crazy. Absolutely nuts.
Yeah. So that was
Yeah.
very cool. I thought that was fun. There was also a section where it talked about in chapter 6, and it was talking about remembering God's laws. And I mentioned this because you were talking about Jesus with your kids, in quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
And it literally does talk about, say all of these things to your children. And then it's like, write them on your forehead, write them on your bedpost, write them in your...
Speak of them as you wake up, speak of them as you go to sleep, right?
while you're eating dinner, like all of these different things, which just really made me think about, that in a sense very much does apply to us today.
Yes.
Are we talking about the Bible with the people around us? Are we talking to God and about God when we wake up, when we go to bed, when we're going out, when we're eating a meal? Like, what does that look like in your daily life?
Yeah, we had this conversation with my 10-year-old the other day because she said, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know how I'm supposed to talk to God. And I keep trying to explain, like, you just talk to him, like he's like your friend on Facebook Messenger. And you just be like, hey, this is how I'm feeling.
Hey.
Because that's kind of how I am. I'm like doing dishes like, God, I can't. I just can't. So I don't even know what I can't. But if you could just, have the Holy Spirit interpret to you what it is that I can't right now,
Yeah.
that would be great. So that's how I operate all day long. We're just in constant conversation.
That did, talking about God. It mentions during, I think it was in like the first couple chapters, where God speaks to him from a fire and they're like, please don't talk to us.
Don't do that again. We will surely die.
Yeah, we will surely die. Like, can you just talk to Moses? And I just thought that was so interesting. I was like, that's where prophets came from. Like, literally the people were like, please don't speak to us.
Do you feel like if God was speaking to you from a fire in a mountain, would you be
I'm
like,
sure I would be
God,
intimidated.
don't do that again.
Please
I don't think I would say that. I am like, zip the lip.
Yeah, I don't
Whatever it
know.
is that you need
That's
to say.
interesting. Yeah. Thank goodness for the Holy Spirit, though, because now we can just talk to him.
Right.
But it's also not from a blazing fire.
Which is probably, I don't know, good. But,
Yeah.
but then there's that part of me. It's like, that would be
so cool.
like, right? Because that's us people, right? Like that's proof. Like you're in a fire, you're talking to me, and we all
Or like
want,
the tongues of fire over the apostles' heads
right?
when they got the Holy Spirit. Lots of fire. Just happens all over the place.
Well, there's got to be a reference that I'm sure you know.
For sure. Somewhere in there's a reference. What were any places that stuck out to you?
I have a lot of stuff highlighted in here.
Yeah.
So I think I highlight my Bible in yellow, but I highlighted this one line in pink.
Okay.
That's how I know it's important.
Wow.
So I highlighted
Color.
a line that says, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. And I think that's like, what does that look like? What does that mean to us? And that's, something that I think about a lot. I've actually hit a place recently over the last few weeks where God's been working pretty hard in my life to show me that I don't trust him quite as much as I think I do.
Yeah.
Like I think that might even be worse than like outright knowing that you're not trusting God is like, I think like, oh, I'm all in. And then he's like, no, you're not. So that's been some work that's been going on. So that was a good, a little line that I had highlighted in the past that stood back out to me again when I reread this time. It's like, you're not trusting with all your everything, just with some bits and pieces.
That's a hard one.
Yeah.
For sure. That whole chapter that's talking about basically wholeheartedly following God. Some intense stuff. Also, Jesus said that. He said, what's the greatest command? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your strength. So, boom. Something else Jesus said, which was in here too, it was in chapter 8, verse 3, and it says, talking about God, like giving him manna and whatnot. And it says that wrong verse. He did it to teach you that people do not live by bread alone. Rather, we live by every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. Where's that from?
Wait, say that again.
So it says, he did it to teach you that people do not live by bread alone. Rather, we live by every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord.
I don't know where this comes from, Anna. Break it down.
Jesus said that verse.
Well, obviously Jesus said it,
Yeah.
but like
It was
where
when
did
he
say
was
it?
being tempted by the devil in the desert or the wilderness. I guess it could have been desert. But then he literally, this is a verse that he quoted. And it says, Scripture says, you shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. I was like, look at that. Jesus reference.
It's all those notes she takes.
He always shows up everywhere.
It does.
So.
It does. You know what stood out to me this time in that chapter was I had noticed it says, beware that in your plenty you do not forget the Lord your God and disobey his commandments.
Yeah.
How often do we do that?
That was a good one. That was a good one for sure. And to like remember, because it's talking about, they're literally going into this land and the houses are already there. The cities are already there. They already have all the furniture. It's like moving into a...
Right. Which I was glad because as I'm reading this, I'm like, why is God just like tearing apart these nations and talking about murdering, men, women, children? And I'm like, why is he doing this? And then I flipped the page and then he answered, he's like, because these people are really, really bad.
Yeah.
And you guys are not necessarily that you're really good.
He does clarify that. I like how he clarified that.
Like, listen, you're not that good.
You're not that good.
They're just way worse.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So I'm going to be on the, if I'm going to have to lean one way or other, obviously we're going to go with the not so good, but not bad guys.
Not really
side.
bad.
Right.
Which was a very, that is one of those clarifications that didn't come up in the previous books that are talking about this period of time.
Look at me.
So look, you picked it out.
I picked it out.
Yeah. It was really good though. And it was just such a funny way that he said it.
Yeah. I feel like I'm getting smarter just sitting next to you.
You got it from the Bible, so getting smarter sitting next to the Bible.
I'll just like osmosis.
Osmosis. Put it against.
Did you
hold
do
it against
that?
your forehead.
Not to digress, but did you do that as a kid? Were you one of those people? I did this, like where you would like put up, like I would read a lesson from something into like my tape recorder, and then I would put it on at night while I slept with headphones, thinking that through osmosis, I would learn it while I was sleeping.
I can't say that I did.
Yeah, my husband said he did it too, so it made me feel a little better. I wasn't super weird.
I listened to Jesus lullabies. That was nice.
Jesus lullabies.
Yeah.
That just sounds like I want to take a really restful nap.
Yeah, for real. It was really good stuff.
I like that.
I think it was by Michael Card. Wow, that's off topic. But
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Problem. I do that to people.
This is a rabbit trail. We're rabbit trailing, which is okay because that happens sometimes. I did think, and I made this note as just like a random part. There's a part in there where it's talking about if an Israelite is a servant and then they pay off their debts, you can set them free unless they want to stay with you because you're really close. And then you basically have to give them like an earring piercing.
But into a door frame? Is that what I understood?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm trying to picture how this is working. Like, you hold someone's ear and then you like hammer
How do you get an earlobe against a door frame? I
Seems
feel
like you'd have to do it really delicately.
You and Eric should try this. I don't want that responsibility because I feel like he would really enjoy that, and I don't want to take that away from him.
Hitting me with a hammer?
No. You obviously he would be getting the earring.
Oh,
in
that's
this
true.
situation.
I do already have earrings, so
right.
You'd have to practice from scratch.
I think.
But I did think that was interesting. So
yeah,
if you're wearing an earring now, like I am, it means that you are part of lifelong servitude, according to the Old Testament.
To the person who pierced your ear, because if that's the case.
There are a lot of people who work in stores who have a lot of servants they don't know about. So if you're listening and you pierce people's ears, this is a day for celebration. This is great.
So a lot of these laws don't really apply.
Yeah, a
anymore.
lot of these really changed when Jesus came on the scene. Thank goodness. Otherwise, we would be in trouble for all sorts of different reasons.
That's funny.
Yeah. Okay. Something that I did think was interesting was talking about how worship changes and how tithes are changing once they get in the promised land. And there's these different parts where it talks about if you can't go to the designated place to give your tithe, just like take whatever your grain or your animal is, kill it, and then have a party, basically.
But that is what it was saying, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, there was a point where it said that you would sell things and then you would take it to another town,
Yeah.
right? And then you would buy new things and then you would have a party?
Yeah, there was like several references because the first time I was also confused because I was like, this doesn't seem right. But then there was a recap chapter, of course.
Right.
Well, where it repeated the same thing. I was like, this is literally talking about in lieu of the tithe, you have a party. Now, granted, it does specify you're supposed to bring the widows and orphans and the Levites to have it with you.
Right.
So it's like not just for you, it's for the people in need. But I was like, this is so interesting. Parties are very important in the Bible, which
We should have more parties.
we should have more parties. That is definitely a step for the future. I mean, required festivals, parties for tithing, all over the place.
Should we tell our congregation that next week we're just having a party?
We're just having, but a social distancing party. So
Right. So everybody has to stand 6 feet away from everybody else.
Yes.
We
Solo
so
dancing.
outside parking lot.
Yes.
Like if we each
In the parking lot.
took a parking stall,
Yeah, that makes sense.
we could make that work.
No, I think you're right.
Okay.
That would work.
Yeah.
So next week,
Party in a parking lot.
Tuesday at 5:42 p.m. That specific time. If you show up and there's nobody here, it was probably canceled. Okay, so
We're not going to get much done, Anna.
any other thoughts? Any other thoughts that you have?
Are we talking? Are we in a specific area that you would like my thoughts?
Oh no, just any.
Okay.
I hopped all over the place.
You did. Yeah. I liked the idols.
You're not supposed to like idols. I'm pretty sure that was clear.
Yeah. Like not. Right. I see where you went with that.
Yeah.
But I was trying to, in all seriousness,
Yeah.
think about idols
Okay.
and how we can turn anything into an idol in our day and age. Like,
That's true.
everything. And the crazy thing is, and the thing that has been going along with this really fantastically fun trust work that God and I are doing right now, is that he's shown me how much that in our house, our children have actually become what we've idolized and what we've put our priority and our focus on. And so we're having to change some dynamics in our household to recenter us all on God instead of their needs immediately first. Because, what they want, and they want it now.
Mm-hmm.
And we were honoring that just a little bit too much. And we were definitely putting them above everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, the change has been a little bit of a shell shock for them, but it'll be good.
Good job. Following the leading of the Lord. Idols came up a lot. Really all through the whole first 5 chapters, really mostly through the entire Bible. But what I was really, after reading about idols, book after book after chapter, is I was struck by, at first I just thought, there are so many regulations as it relates to idols. It just felt like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But then the more I got into it and the more that God explained it, it was what I just really felt like it was talking about. I was like, it is so easy for us to get idols.
Mm-hmm.
It is so easy. And it was so easy for the Israelites to make idols. Like Moses only had to be on the mountain for a little bit.
Like 40 days and they're like, got a golden calf.
Yeah, got a golden calf that fast.
God just spoke to you from a fire.
Yeah.
And
literally, it was right before that.
Right. That's all I was saying. Like, it's from a fire that you said, don't speak to me because that's so scary.
Yeah.
And then Moses disappears for 40 days and you make a golden calf.
Yeah. They were so quick about it. Like, it was just the first thing that came to mind, make an idol.
Right.
Like, any uncertainty.
How
make
many
an idol.
times?
Too far from home, make an idol. Like, it was really all the stuff.
I mean, it just, all I remember just reading over and over is like, Moses just kept having to say, like, please don't strike them down. Like, they're idiots.
Yes. Yeah.
It's really,
They're not smart people.
not smart people.
And he does remind, like, that whole chapter of, remember, you were horrible.
Right. And then, like, the poor guy now is punished because of them. And he lives his whole life and doesn't get to go to the promised land.
Yeah, that was kind of sad.
I felt really bad for Moses.
I did feel like he did a little bit of blame placing, but that would just, like that chapter where it's talking about he's standing on the other side of the river and he's like, I just want to go over there and see it. That was sad. It was a sad moment.
I mean, he did lead his people. I feel like might have been a nice reward.
No.
But
take it up with God.
One day we're going to have this conversation.
Why?
Why didn't you just let him cross
all
the river?
All the questions.
Do you just like keep a journal? Wouldn't it be nice if that journal could go with you? And
to heaven?
Yes. Right? And you would just be like, okay, listen, on page 234, I had this question.
I guess I just assume that when I get there, I really won't care.
None of it will matter.
Like
you don't think you'll get there and have all these questions of like, I always wanted to know.
I feel like I'll just be there and I'll just be so excited to hang out with Jesus. I'll just be like, whatever.
That would be
all that other stuff. Yeah.
Well, that would be a great relief if we don't have to care. If we don't care, because then that's a lot of worry that just gone.
Yeah, true.
Right. I'm going with I like that, because I always think I'm gonna like 20 questions. Like, remember you said.
Yeah.
What did that mean?
What did that mean when you said that?
Right.
So confusing.
Right. Because I
that's
tell
like
my
the
kids
whole
that.
Bible.
I'm like, well, we just won't know until we meet God, But
yeah.
You're right. We're going to be like, whatever.
Then we meet God and we're like, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I'm good with the way it worked out.
Okay.
So
I like that.
So
works for me.
Any next steps?
Well, listen, when God tells you that he's going to do something for you, stop him and hawing about it, because it just creates a lot of issues.
Yeah, it does.
And then it makes whatever he
believe in the
promised
promise.
You. Yeah, it takes a lot longer. Actually, we were watching a history lesson because, we're all homeschool parents now.
Yes.
Every last one of us. But we were watching a history channel about England settling the New World and how things had just a fight. We're going to get a history lesson here on top of our Bible lessons. But essentially, when they settled the colony of Roanoke, a fight broke out between the English and the Native Americans over what they assumed was a stolen silver cup. They thought the Native Americans stole a silver cup. Mm-hmm. Okay. And this turned into a whole battle, and the colony dispersed. And then they tried to resettle the colony in the exact same location of the people who don't really like them now. And things went south. And so they were pointing out one thing. There was this one little issue over what may or may not have actually been a stolen silver cup that essentially changed the course of history. That could have been the first successful colony of England. Yeah. But it wasn't. It failed miserably and disappeared. If you don't know about it, you should look it up. It's very cool. But I thought...
Mysteries of the world.
But I thought
questions
about that.
You may or may not ask God.
Probably not that one.
Probably not that one.
But maybe because, nobody really knows what happened. But anyways, the point was, as I was reading through this, I thought, see, it just takes one little thing. You could change the course of it. Had you just shown up to the promised land and be like, okay, you say we got this, we're going in. But they didn't. And they questioned and they said...
Yeah. Goes back to that trust.
Right. And then they just wander aimlessly.
For a long time.
For a really long time.
Whole generation died in the wilderness. Mm-hmm. Believe the promise.
Believe the promise.
It's a real thing.
It is.
Yeah. My next step, I'm trying to think. I definitely put it down before. I can't remember what it was.
All those notes and you don't have that highlighted? I think you need to add a highlighter to your
I did
notes.
recently think, I was like, why don't I ever write down the next step in this section?
You should do that.
I did just earlier today.
We've just solved your next step.
Yes.
You're going to start writing down
is to write down the next step. That's my personal one.
Right.
I think, I'm going to go with what I put down as my big verse, which was always talk about God. Always talk to God. Mm-hmm. That morning, night, evening, all of that. Because it's important to remember. The biggest part of the first 5 chapters of the Bible is really about remembering. In all of it, the festivals are about remembering. The offerings are about remembering. The actual books themselves are about remembering what God did for you. Remember that. So
it's a great takeaway.
Yeah.
So remember. And remember that he makes promises that he keeps.
Yes. And believe him when he says it.
And believe him when he says it. We just tied that together very nicely.
Yeah. It's like a nice little bow on the... So, as you are going about this week, social distancing from others, perhaps homeschooling, perhaps
So much homeschooling.
doing whatever Eric is doing right now.
What is Eric doing right now?
It's a mystery. One of those things I'll ask God. What was Eric doing during that podcast episode?
You won't care.
I will not ask that question. So we look forward to talking to you next week. Eric will be back. Kelly may come back as a co-host or guest sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to come back. This is pretty fun.
It is very, very fun.
And it's just nice to like be this close to a person right now. So
The withdrawal is extreme.
it really is.
Yeah. So we're so excited to talk to you. Fairly normal people talking about the Bible. And thank you for listening to What Now with Anna and Eric
And Kelly.
and Kelly. Bye.